Just days after an Air India flight from Phuket to Delhi dropped nearly 300 feet mid-air before landing safely in Delhi, sources familiar with the matter have now told Times Now that the pilot in command of the flight tested positive in a post-flight screening for psychoactive substance. The development is significant because pilots are subject to strict drug testing protocols under civil aviation rules. Air India is, however, distancing itself from the reported result. The airline says a post-flight screening test was conducted in accordance with applicable protocols, but insists that results have not been shared with it. Air India is also saying that it conducts regular drug testing of crew members in compliance with civil aviation regulations, independent of any specific flight or operational incident. However, the Ministry of Civil Aviation has also confirmed that the results of one of the pilots following the psychoactive screening test does require a confirmatory test, and therefore samples have been sent for confirmation. Meanwhile, both crew members have been derostered by the DGCA, and the government has promised action once the test results are out.
Turbulence incident, most of the passengers in the first few hours only, they were discharged from the hospital. Around 24 passengers were facing some kind of medical inconvenience. So they were taken to the hospital, thorough checkup has been done to them, and most of them have been discharged. 4 crew members are still there, and we are continuously watching their medical progress, and the hospitals, Air India, everyone is providing full support.
But why was it actually like inside? What was it actually like the aircraft, inside the aircraft when the flight suddenly dropped mid-air? Times Now spoke to the passengers who were on board that fateful Air India flight, who recount the moments of panic and uncertainty.
Shrikant Jha, as someone who was on that flight, you are listening to this point of view come in, but the fact is that 17 people were injured. What happened, this 300 feet drop, altitude drop, it did manage to rattle passengers who were on board. As I said, 17 people, including crew members, were injured. What do you make of all this discussion that is going around, what you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for giving me the opportunity to be here. And first of all, I agree with both gentlemen. They're both experts of aviation and they know their game. I'm not an aviation expert, so I can't say or defend what they're saying. I would agree with them about the medicine or even flying, all the things that they said. What my perspective is as a flyer, I'm a very avid flyer. My family, we live in US and we travel a lot between US, India, and globally and locally everywhere. And my perception was looking at the pilot, the way he was dressed. Initially, when he was going into the cockpit, we saw it before, and even after he came out after the incident, it just felt the demeanor wasn't of a dignified pilot. Again, it's very subjective, and that's why we still decided to take the flight, because we trusted the processes. And as the captain gentleman said, that all of the pilots are tested before they take the flight. So that's why we trusted them to have been tested, and we ignored the demeanor. But what was surprising to me was after the incident happened, which is after that 300 feet drop where people got injured, they got hurt. And when the pilot, they spoke to the passengers through the cockpit, there was zero empathy, there was zero asking about how people are doing, or zero explanation about what had happened. It was mostly around things that he spoke about was, hey, using terms like a boss, don't take any photos or videos, don't post it on social media, baat ka batangad ban jata hai, and it'll all go and escalate, and you will suffer and we'll suffer. And it just felt it wasn't a dignified pilot level communication that normally we are, we grew up knowing that pilots and captains and senior positions in aviation and airlines, they are respectful, they are very dignified positions. And so it just felt it wasn't very dignified of him to say things the way he said. And that doesn't confirm any intoxication and all. And as Captain and the other gentleman, Mr. Randhawa, said, it should come out of the testing.
हमारे साथ जो आगे बैठे हुए थे ना, वो उन्होंने पहले ही शुरू में जैसे वो पायलट घुसा तभी उन्होंने बोला कि ये सीधा ही नहीं चल पा रहा है, शर्ट भी टक्ड इन नहीं है। ऐसा हम लोग तो पायलट्स का मतलब समझते हैं कि एकदम बहुत टिप टॉप आएंगे और बहुत अच्छे से वेल बिहेव्ड होंगे, तो वो तो जब ही समझ में आ गया था। फिर हमको भी बाद में लगा, जब वो बाद में निकल के बाहर आया था, गुस्से में ही थोड़ा सा आया, तब लगा तो सही कि वो ही इज़ नॉट इन अ गुड कंडीशन। ये बहुत बड़ा खिलवाड़ है, इतना मतलब फैमिलीज, इतने लोग बैठे हुए, 3 साल की बच्ची उछल के इतना पीछे तक चली गई, ये कितना बड़ा खिलवाड़ कर रहे हैं यार। छोटे छोटे इंस्टेंसेस होते हैं जो ज़िंदगी भर के लिए हमारे बच्चे अब कह रहे हैं कि हमको बैठना ही नहीं कभी फ्लाइट में। इट्स नॉट अ गुड थिंग, तो प्लीज़ टेक केयर।
Now, it is important to note that a follow-up result in this particular case is still pending for psychoactive substances. Questions surrounding pilot fitness are not new when it comes to Air India. Here's a look at Maharaja's history of similar incidents that raise question marks. On the 17th of May in 2015, this happened in Sharjah, where a senior commander was caught before takeoff. He was suspended following third offence. In August 2016, another Sharjah-Kozhikode flight saw an alcohol detection in post-flight test. DGCA had then suspended the pilot involved for 4 years. In November 2018, it was a Delhi-Bangkok flight where a co-pilot missed mandatory pre-flight test that the flight crew is subjected to. The flight had to return shortly after takeoff. Again, in November 2018, it was a Delhi-London flight where the pilot was found unfit to fly and was grounded. This led to delays of about 55 minutes in the flight takeoff. In December 2025, it was a Vancouver-Delhi flight where a pilot failed 2 breath analyzer tests. He was offloaded and he was taken off flying duties pending inquiry. Now, this is the history that begets a question. What are the checks that are in place to determine if our pilots are fit to fly? In India, every pilot has to give an alcohol test before every flight. But when it comes to dope tests, only 10% of pilots are randomly subjected to such tests, and this is done on a random basis. Dope tests are also conducted after any untoward incident. Critics are now saying that the punishment for failing dope tests is too lenient in India, and a pilot is only taken off duty for 6 months and sent to the rehabilitation program. In other countries, however, pilots are terminated for similar offences. But in India, that does not appear to be the case. Now, the immediate focus shifts to the regulator, the DGCA. Was this an initial screening result or a confirmed finding? What substance was allegedly detected? And what action, if any, will follow against the pilot? Until the test results are formally shared and the prescribed process is completed, the reported positive screening remains subject to regulatory verification.
This particular crew was tested for psychoactive substances post their landing at Delhi. Their samples were taken, and one of the airline crew, the pilot per se, has been tested positive. This is a very serious issue in aviation. It is very important to understand that if the SOPs were not followed, then it is because of that pilot that the passengers suffered injuries, the cabin crew suffered head injuries, and it is very alarming in aviation.
Sabyasachi, what's the latest on this front? We know that there was a subsidiary test, a secondary test that was also pending. Are the results in? When are we likely to expect those results so that it clears the air around what happened?
Well, see, after what is the drug test issue? See, after the flight landed, both the pilots went for a mandatory psychoactive substance screening, which is commonly called a dope or drug test. Now, this standard procedure of serious mid-air incidents. Now, the captain, pilot in command, initially test result was not negative, and the first officer did not raise any concern. The captain's sample has been sent to a laboratory for a confirmatory test, and final results are still awaited. Now, for our viewers, if it says that non-negative, which means that the pilot has been confirmed positive for drugs or alcohol, and an initial screening test is a quick check, and both the pilots have been temporarily taken off flying duties by the DGCA, and this is a normal until the confirmatory test results and the full investigations are complete. And according to the DGCA regulations, see, if the screening is non-negative, then the pilot is immediately removed from the safety-sensitive duties until the confirmatory report comes. And if the confirmatory test is positive for the first time, then the pilot is sent for de-addiction and rehabilitation, and they can return to flying only after testing negative. Now, the second positive can lead to a 3-year license suspension, and a third positive can result in cancellation of the license.
Right, we are still awaiting that confirmatory test results, the timeline of which is not very clear right now. The pilot's body has, of course, argued that this could be an inadvertent violation as well. We'll wait for the results. Thank you, Sabyasachi, for joining us. But remember, this development also comes at a time when a group of pilots have now sought an autonomous civil aviation authority that seeks to replace the DGCA altogether. The Pilots Federation is seeking stronger regulatory framework and oversight, something that they feel has been lacking under the DGCA. The Pilots Federation have also cited examples of regulatory models in other countries to explain the need for enhanced monitoring of flight operations, airworthiness, and even flight duty time limitations. The opposition, meanwhile, has now trained its guns at the government, questioning its handling of aviation safety and demanding accountability.
इस सरकार में लापरवाही की इंतहा हो गई। सिविल एविएशन सेक्टर पूरी तरह उसका शिकार है। अगर डोप टेस्ट में पॉजिटिव पाए गए तो मैं समझता हूँ चिंताजनक स्थिति। जब एक यात्री टिकट लेकर बैठता है तो उसकी सुरक्षा की जिम्मेदारी एयरलाइंस की होती है, और जब पायलट नशे की हालत में होगा या नशे का प्रभाव होगा, अभी पूरी तरह रिपोर्ट आई नहीं है, एक शायद कोई और टेस्ट होगा, आ जाए तभी इस पर बोलना ठीक रहेगा।
इस तरह की तमाम घटनाएं होती रही। अहमदाबाद प्लेन क्रैश आप सबको याद होगा कितना दर्दनाक रहा, लेकिन सरकार सबक नहीं लेती है, क्योंकि उसे जनता की जान की परवाह ही नहीं है। वो सिर्फ सत्ता में डूबे हुए लोग हैं, तानाशाही कर रहे हैं। इस तरह की घटनाएं होना यकीनन बहुत बड़ा सवाल पूरे एविएशन इंडस्ट्री पे उठाता है। हम चाहेंगे इसमें अकाउंटेबिलिटी तय हो, कौन लोग जिम्मेदार हैं और ये बार बार क्यों हो रहा है।